In this lesson, we'll work on our counter twist solution for the character's legs. So this is going to be really neat. We can utilize Max's history independent IK solver to create this counter twist rig. If we set this up correctly, we'll be able to create a target object that essentially locks down the twist axis of our IK system, and then we can tie it back to our main leg in a way where we will be able to cancel out that twist axis as we start to rotate our leg around, but the other axes will move just fine. So you can imagine that this is going to look wonderful when we eventually skim this bone object we're about to build. Let's go ahead and get started. We'll grab the main thigh and let's go ahead and clone it. So press Ctrl V. From there we'll go ahead and rename this object to bone underscore L thigh twist. I'll get rid of main. That's going to be 0, 1. Alright, so let's go ahead and choose OK and resize this object. We'll go to our modify panel and let's go ahead and set the width to 5 and the height as well. Alright, much better. Let's head over to our bone tools and create a nub. We'll simply choose create end. Great. Alright, it'd be a good idea to rename the nub, so I'll just go ahead and grab the name of the parent object. Select the nub, paste, and that's going to be bn end as our prefix. Now if we were to go to our rotate tool and take a look at the rotation coordinates of this object, you can see that it needs to be cleaned up. Let's go ahead and alt right click and choose freeze transform. Beautiful. Alright, now we're ready to create our IK object. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and grab the bone object. We can alt right click and grab our history independent solver and tie that to our nub. Of course, we know that we can also access it from the animation menu. Alright, so once this has been made, let's go ahead and rename this. So I'll simply go ahead and paste the name that we were using for the twist rig. And instead of bone, our prefix will be high IK. Alright, so once that's in place, we now can create an anchor object that we'll use to make sure that the IK as well as our target object will follow our leg. So we could always work with a helper. Let's go ahead and create a point helper. We can use the current settings. We can make it a box and leave the size at 4. And now very important, we'll want to Alt-A align this to our nub object so that its orientation is matched to this counter twist chain. So we want to align the position to the nub and the orientation to the chain. So that's exactly what we have. Let's go ahead and rename this object. I'll just go ahead and paste the name in, and that's going to be PTDRV as our prefix. Alright, so next, let's say we go ahead and clone this object so we can create our target object. I'd recommend switching the coordinate system for our move tool to local mode. That way we can move back in the direction we need to, so that once we connect the target object, our chain here will not flip. It won't shift when we assign the target object. Alright, so with PTDRV selected, we'll hold down shift and let's go ahead and just drag this back to clone a new helper. Great. Alright, from there, we are ready to rename this. That's going to be IKTRGT for IK target, L thigh twist 01. I'll now choose OK. And from this point, we are then ready to go ahead and take our IK goal, head over to our motion panel, and assign our target object. So we'll go ahead and click on none, and then click on the object. So notice there's no shifting. When we go ahead and select our target and start to move it around, it's controlling our twist axis. Very fun. We are just about finished. I'd recommend taking this target and changing its display, let's say to cross, just so we don't get confused. Alright, now to start finishing this up, let's go ahead and take our anchor helper And let's go ahead and link that to our main thigh. We want that to follow the thigh. All right, great. Now we can go in and freeze its transforms. All right, next, what we'll want to do is go ahead and essentially make sure that this object is going to be locked down to the character's shin. That way, when we start to set up our squash and stretch system for our FK leg, when we start to pull the shin, this object will follow, and that will reorient our counter twist bone to make sure it's always oriented properly. All right, so we'll just go ahead and take our anchor helper, right click and grab our position constraint and tie that to the shin. Beautiful. We can now go ahead and take our target object and the IK goal and link those to our helper, the anchor. Once that's done, we can go ahead and freeze their transforms. Let's right click and choose freeze transform and then choose yes. So we're just about done. Now we need to make sure that when we take this thigh and we rotate it around, the target object will not follow. So we essentially need to cancel out the twist on our parent object here, the anchor. So this is very simple to do. Let's go ahead and grab the main thigh. We can see its twist axis is the X. That's the same twist axis as our anchor. So with the thigh selected, we'll right click and we will choose wire parameters. We're going to wire the zero Euler twist axis, which is the X, and we'll tie that into our anchor's twist axis, which again is zero Euler X. So now to cancel out the rotation, we simply need to multiply this value by -1. Need to essentially use the reciprocal. So I'll go ahead and just add the negative operation in front. We'll use the lower arrow to make sure we're connecting this correctly. And now we'll choose connect. Now here is the exciting part. Watch this. When we take the main thigh and we start to twist this, notice the twist on the IK system has been canceled out. You can see that we can still move in all other directions. So this is always going to work. You'll notice that we won't run into any flipping issues at all. How exciting is that? I'll go ahead and alt right click and choose transform to 0 to make sure the leg is brought back. All right, so from here we can make sure that all of these objects are going to be stored in their layers. So I'll just go ahead and start by hiding the hidden layer. You'll see that we'll need to essentially grab all of these objects here, the nub, the IK goal, our anchor, and the target. We want to make sure they're added to that hidden layer. All right. And now for the actual bone object that we'll use to skin the character's leg with, we'll go ahead and make sure that that's added to our bones layer. Great. So that's how we'd set this up. The process is the same on the right side. We're using the exact same steps. If you would like to mirror your target object across, it's not critical, but if you would like to add a sense of cleanliness to the rig, we can always take this target object and create a temp object from it. So I'd recommend just cloning it, pressing Ctrl V, make it a copy. And now if we go to our move tool and make sure that its coordinate system is set to world, we can now go ahead and put in the reciprocal here. So currently the X value is about 2.349. I'll go ahead and make that -2, and you can see that that has been mirrored over. Now again, this is a temp object, so when you're done setting up your anchor, your IK goal, and you're ready to create your target, when you go ahead and clone that object, you can go ahead and quick align it to this object here, which I'd recommend just going in and maybe changing the display to make it easier on you, so you don't have an overlapping helper. And then once you have quick aligned to this object, you can go ahead and delete this temp object and you'll be good to go. All right, so again, I'm going to leave the right side up to you, but that's essentially how we would set up our counter twist system.